These highlights from the Probate podcast will help you navigate life transitions like a pro. From senior living to estate planning to probate, you'll learn incredibly useful tips. Be sure to like and subscribe to hear more from Sherry Lund and her expert guests.
So describe what Full Circle is and what you do.
Absolutely. So when someone passes away, everything that person's life touched needs to be addressed by the family members. We think oftentimes of the funeral and we think of the personal items. Where do we take dad's guns and the book and what do we do with his car? But we don't think about all the other things that our lives touch. Everything from government benefits like Social Security to pensions, 401ks, credit cards, utilities, memberships, Netflix and AARP memberships and newspaper subscriptions. And just going through all that can be really complicated. I keep this under my desk. I won't show you the logo, but a big funeral home conglomerate sells this big albatross with a 2.5-inch binder inside. And this is a pretty comprehensive list of everything that family would have to know to get through those next steps. And because it's so frustrating and so difficult for the family, this is overwhelming. Nobody wants to go through that 2.5-inch binder. And so what we determined is families need some hand-holding. They need a real concierge to walk them through this. And so that's what we are. We're just a concierge service where we white label under services like funeral homes and hospices and law firms and even some real estate agents across the country. And what we do is they pay for our service or they sell our service to their families. We go in and we help the family figure out what those next steps are. What accounts did their loved one have and what needs to be closed down? And then we will systematically go through each of the phone calls to make the notifications and help them start that process. We're not attorneys. We're not trying to be. We're not financial planners. We're not trying to be those either. We're really just helping with that notification process and getting organized and what those next steps are. And then helping the family find other professionals that would help them if they need, such as an attorney or a tax advisor moving forward. So that's it in a nutshell. It's really just hand-holding, understanding what the family needs to do, helping them make the notifications and phone calls, fill out whatever paperwork we can, and taking a process. On average, it takes a family with less than $10,000 of assets 14 months to make all those notifications.
Wow.
On average, we're done in less than a week. And we do it all
Whoa.
for them. And oftentimes they have to make one or none phone calls
Wow.
to have it happen.
That's amazing. I didn't realize it took that long and that you guys could do it so quickly.
We can. Well, you take the emotional side out of it.
Yes.
Also take the fact that, hey, if I'm going to call Social Security, I'm going to call the general number. I'm going to sit on hold for 50 minutes on my own. But because we do such high volume, we can call Social Security and get in on average in less than 7 minutes.
Wow.
Or same thing, you're going to call a utility company and press 1, press 7, press 4.
Yes.
Did I press the right number? And then you stay on hold for an hour. We have built connections with most of those companies so we can get right in and we know how to make the notification.
There's the little video and we can all relate to it, but when you're on hold and the computer is asking you, what do you want? And you start screaming at the phone because you've told it already. I want to speak to a representative,
Representative. Yeah.
But has there been something for you that has connected with you, like the sense of fulfillment of the logistical stuff that you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. As an engineering background, for me, it's all mathematics, it's lineal course, just what you said, right? And hey, how can I take a complicated process and make it simple, easy, and user-friendly? What I didn't calculate was the emotional side of it. And I remember I was probably just a year into it. We were trying to struggle and figure out the company, and I was really trying to get things more effective in our usage. And I was working with a hospice out of Wyoming. And this gentleman I helped, his name was Earl. He had lost a son who's 22 years old, and his son had been disabled his whole life, so it wasn't completely unexpected. He was on hospice. They knew he would die young. And Earl, I grew up watching like John Wayne and the spaghetti westerns, and Earl sounded just like John Wayne. He kind of had that drawl, sounded like he could chew up nails and spit them out. And I remember going through the checklist, and of all the things we could normally help with, there were just 1 or 2 items we needed to do for his son. I dealt with some Social Security benefits. I dealt with canceling a credit card, setting up some fraud protection, and that was about it. And I'm sitting there on the phone, and I'm like, Earl, that's it. I don't think there's anything else we need to do for your son. And it's just silence. And I'm like, Earl, are you there? Did I lose you? And suddenly he comes back choked up. Now here's Mr. True Grit, right?
Right.
And he's choked up and he goes, Matt, the thing I have dreaded most after my son died was calling these strangers and having to say my sweet son's name and telling them that he passed away. And the fact that you did all of that for me means everything to me. And all of a sudden, it just touched me in a way that I was like, this is more than helping them with logistics. This is holding someone's hand who just lost someone who was part of their life and they love them. And now they don't have to sit on hold. They don't have to talk to a stranger and be like, my son died, or my mom died, or my wife died. Instead, we can do that for them and we can take that weight off their shoulders and give them a little peace of mind. And at that moment, my passion for this completely changed. And it wasn't
Yeah.
so much about the logistics, that's still a big part of it. It was about helping people and being there for them at a difficult moment of their life.
Sure. You saw value that was intrinsic at that point. I have a friend who is a widow. I think her husband passed away 4 years ago. And she said one time that she was trying really hard to keep his memory alive and to keep things around to keep him with her, even though he was gone. But she had to make those phone calls. She didn't know about your service.
Yeah.
And so she said, Sherry, while I am trying to keep his memory alive, I'm also having to call people and tell them to erase his name from our account or from that statement or whatever. And just the conflict of that was like, how do you bridge that? How do you rectify that? And I didn't know as a friend, I was number one honored that she shared that with nobody else had explained that to me. But number two, I felt helpless to know what to say back to her. And they're so vulnerable and so fragile that I don't want to say the wrong thing. So sometimes I say nothing, and that's not always good either. So the fact that you guys just take that away and let them have their peace and heal as they need to, you take that on so they don't have to, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
We notice a transition as we're helping families because at the beginning, we get a lot of families who are almost stoic about the whole situation and others who are maybe a little angry and a little frustrated about what we're going through. And I remember we had our trainer, she was helping train a new employee, and I peeked my head at the beginning. And this new employee looked at me with eyes this big, and I could hear this guy, and he was just angry at the world and kind of cussing everyone out. And I talked to a therapist who had gone through our service, and he goes, there's something about that. There's this weight. And as these things come off, it lifts the weight, but then all these other emotions bubble up, right? Like you said, like they're being erased and it's difficult, but also needs to happen. So oftentimes they'll get very emotional. So he was this big jerk and swearing at everyone and everything. And then all of a sudden he just stops and he starts crying after they'd gotten through a big item that he needed to get off his plate. And he goes, oh, I feel so relieved. And thank you so much for helping me. I'm sorry I've been angry. I just don't know how to deal with this loss. And so this new employee came walking out of there and like, this is the best work. And I thought she was going to quit on her first day because she was so taken aback by this guy. But she's, yeah, this is important. And you're right. It's difficult to get through. That's why it's so nice to have someone there who's caring, who can hold your hand through that process so you don't feel like you're doing it by yourself.
And what I like about what you do is it's not anything that I do, but what we do is parallel. So you offer concierge services for admin type of stuff, and I do the boots on the ground, dealing with the property and the personal belongings and whatnot. And
So
so
necessary.
yes, but also compatible and very necessary. Getting information from people, that's the hardest part because once we can get the information, it's the decisions that they have to make. I can run with that for a little bit. And then if we need to make adjustments, I can come back and make adjustments. But that first initial piece is the hardest.
To catch the full episode and explore more resources from the Probate Podcast, check the links in the description and be sure to subscribe for more tips each week.